And ultimately, it's the magic trifecta when who you are in mind, both from a mindset perspective and who you envision yourself to be, how you show up in body, so being the best version of yourself physically, and really using your body as a vehicle and as a tool to have greater influence and to have more presence. When that's all aligned with then what you're communicating in brand, the tone, the colors, the positioning, what you're putting out in the world. When all of those three things are aligned, then to me, that's a really powerful proposition.
Are you feeling lost in your career, or you want to have a greater impact but you don't know where to start? Welcome to Kinda Planned, the podcast where we help you unlock the opportunities that you can't plan for. Through engaging conversations with expert guests, we help you unlock the mindsets, strategies, and tools that you need to build the career of your dreams. So subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Alex Cutterford, and let's take a moment to unlock your next opportunity. Well, welcome back to Kinda Planned. I'm lucky enough today to have Carlii Lyon with me. Carlii is a personal branding expert, international speaker, podcast host of The Brand in You, and also author of Courage to Be. So thank you so much for coming on, Carlii.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you for having me. And I like the name of the new name of the podcast. It's really good.
Yeah, and it's a fun play on, I guess, what my career has been. And I guess really starting to, better align to the message that I was trying to share, but obviously still really passionate about personal branding and career development, which was kind of the premise of the former name. And I know something that you're really passionate about and have, amazing insights for people to share with people today. But would you maybe want to just maybe take us back and help us understand your career journey and your story and what's led you to what you're doing today?
Yeah, thank you. So, as you've rightly said, personal branding is definitely my playhouse. Going all the way back, I launched my own PR consultancy at the young age of 21. So in my 20s, I always looked much older than I was, which is great in your 20s, not so great in your 40s. But anyway, that's another story. But I launched my own PR consultancy at 21. I was actually still studying PR at college, but I was so impatient. I just wanted to get out there and start working. And in some ways, accidentally, but perhaps not, I always specialized in individual branding. I'm so fascinated by people's stories, and when you're in the game of PR, marketing an individual and their story is very different to marketing a product or a brand. And I really loved working with so many of the amazing people that I worked with. So I did that for well over a decade, traveled all over the world, represented some really amazing people from all walks of life. And then I went on extended maternity leave to have two beautiful baby boys. I actually went on extended maternity leave after my second child was born because I knew I couldn't keep up with the pace of the international existence that I had. And so I did that. I probably thought I was going to do it for longer than I did, but I really struggled not working because I'd always been such a career-oriented person. And actually, that was the moment for me, Alex, that shaped what I'm doing today, because it happened that on extended maternity leave, that was when I discovered that in all of my time doing the things that I was doing, I had never shaped my own personal brand. I'd never made any real effort to proactively put myself out there. I didn't have any communication assets. All of the 101 of personal branding, I didn't and hadn't applied to myself. And at that point, when I was feeling invisible, and I actually was invisible, that was the moment where I thought, okay, if I'm feeling like this and I know how to do it, I've done it for so many amazing people. I know the steps of how to brand yourself and what you need to do that effectively, but I'm not doing it. That probably means that other people are not doing it well or don't know what to do. And that is what led me to do what I'm doing today. So today I'm all about working with individuals and executives. I coach individuals and executives one-on-one around their personal and executive brands. And a big part of what I do is corporate speaking, so that international speaking, where I am talking about topics, executive brand, influence, and communication.
Yeah, wow. So you've kind of like gone on this full circle journey, but maybe you've come back to it with a whole bunch of new lessons and perspectives on how to do it, and it's coming more from a place of your own visibility rather than just elevating someone else's. And now you kind of like you've brought those two together a bit more. You've learnt to elevate yourself alongside still, with the goal of helping others to elevate themselves. And it's such a powerful thing, personal branding. I'd be interested in getting your thoughts. So everyone I talk to about personal branding, I talk to a number of people about it, and I always love hearing different perspectives on it. Everyone always feels the need to qualify personal branding and what it means because it comes with so many negative connotations from people. Your take on that? Have you went into trying to help people re-understand a positive and authentic understanding of personal branding, or do you try to change language around? How do you approach that?
You know, I apologize in advance for anyone who finds this offensive, but the moment that I started getting out into the world and talking about personal branding in that way was the moment when I started to hear the word wanker so much more, because for whatever reason, somewhere along the line, it's become synonymous that, for someone to have a personal brand, that means that they're a wanker, that somehow, it's a very self-indulgent, egotistic pursuit of and way of being. And I am really passionate about trying to reframe that and have people understand that when you're invisible, you are not serving anyone, not only yourself, but also the people that you aim to serve. Second to that, when you link your visibility with purpose and impact, so therefore, the more you're seen and heard, the more influence you can have, the more impact you can have, then it's actually not about self-promotion, it's selfless promotion, because you're putting yourself out there to add value, to be of service. And the reality is, when you approach it with that mindset, everything changes. The way you communicate, what you communicate, how you communicate, the courage that you have to communicate, it all changes because you start to focus more on, well, how can I add value? How can I serve? How can I teach? How can I inspire? It's not so much about how do I just make myself look good and sound good. And the truth is, yes, there is and are a percentage of people that perhaps are shaping their personal brand because they just want to look good and sound good, and it's not really about anyone else. But that's not what I'm an advocate for. And in my experience, having been out in the world now talking about this topic for the past 7 years, I can 100% confirm that the vast majority of people don't want attention for the sake of attention itself. And the only way you're going to get the vast majority of people to step out of their comfort zone and to be more visible and to be more vocal, they have to be doing it for a purpose. It's not just about making themselves look good. That being said, though, when you realize that making yourself look good and sound good actually does ultimately add value, then that changes that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a massive, massive thing, particularly in the world we live in. Like, it's just so important. Because people are going to see you. It's just whether or not you're actually now shaping that perspective and being really intentional with it, because most people are engaging with things online, doing things online, acting in a certain way online. And so we kind of have this funny nuance to it now where there's the element of you can go to the office and maybe you sit down at your desk and you hide in that way, but you are also gonna. I think it was Gary Vee. I was listening to him talk the other day, and he was talking about how like the importance of brands need to actually care now, because you're not actually going to get away with not caring, because people are you are going to be seen, but it's, are you actually going to be seen for what you want to be seen for, and in a way that aligns with your values and who you are, and in a way that actually enhances your life and the opportunities that you get, and yeah, really enriches it. So it's something that
Yeah.
just to engage with it intentionally can
Yep.
just really unlock so many opportunities for your life. And I know that's sort of a big part of your book is around the opportunities that it can create. So keen to dive into Courage to Be. How did you come to that name, and what's that mean to you?
Yeah. So I've wanted to write a book forever. And I think that that's probably something that I share with a lot of people. And they say that everyone has a book in them. I don't know if this is the only book that I have in me, but for now, I'll just enjoy the one that I have. When I started writing the book, and I'd just get stuck and I'd get stuck and I'd get stuck. And I called my mentor one day, who, as I mentioned before we got on, he's been in publishing his whole life and career, and he's now 74. Uh, he said to me, because I said, I'm really struggling. I keep starting, but I'm not pushing through. And it's like, I want to do this, but I'm just not getting it done. And he said, Carlii, one of the best things you can do is write the book for one person. Just write it for one person. Have that person top of mind, whether that person's someone you know or it's a character that you've created in your mind. Write the book for that person. And when I sat with that idea, I realized that I wanted to write the book for me, or the person I was when I was in extended maternity leave, when I was in that rut of not knowing what I could do next. I was really terrified about putting myself out there. I was feeling really invisible and insecure. And when I thought about, okay, what did she need at that point? Like, what would have been the book that she would need at that point? And that's where the thing was, she really just needed the courage to be who she wanted to be and to put herself out there. So that's how the title came about. And the way that I've written the book is I've broken it down into 3 sections of mind, body, and brand. And the subtitle is Small Steps for a Big Life. And they're short, sharp chapters that are all centered around stories. And they're all aimed at helping you to have the courage to be in those 3 areas of your life.
Yeah, and I was keen to dive into how those three components come together: the mind, body, and brand.
Mm.
How do they all come together, and what is it about mind and body that really feeds into brand for you?
Yeah. So when I talk about personal branding and it being the intentional way that you present and package yourself, a big part of how we present and package ourselves, of course, there's the online component, but a big part is also in person, and our body is the vehicle through which we, experience and have an impact in the world. So to only talk about, what you're communicating out there or in black and white, I think misses a big part of the whole picture, which is, how are you showing up physically, your body, and the mindset piece around what do you think about yourself? What are you telling yourself? And how is that then impacting how you're showing up in body, but also how you're showing up in brand? And ultimately, it's the magic trifecta when who you are in mind, both from a mindset perspective and who you envision yourself to be, how you show up in body, so being the best version of yourself physically, and really using your body as a vehicle and as a tool to have greater influence and to have more presence, when that's all aligned with then what you're communicating in brand, the tone, the colors, the positioning, what you're putting out in the world, when all of those three things are aligned, then to me, that's a really powerful proposition. But of course, we've all had situations where we meet a person, and I remember this actually distinctly. I met, they say don't ever meet the people that you
Your
really,
heroes.
your
Yeah.
icons or the superstars.
Yeah.
So I won't name names, but I met this author that basically was like, I had put them on the pedestal of all pedestals. And I was expecting this person to show up in a way that was just so enlightened and just have such a magnetic presence, because the way that they branded themselves was that. But then when I met them, it was such a letdown because it was so disconnected.
Mm.
Who they were saying they were and then who they actually were two totally different things. So that's why in the book, I really wanted to address all three of those areas, because to me, that's actually, when I think of personal brand, you can't not think about all of those three elements.
Yeah, absolutely. The way it aligns a lot with the philosophy that I talk about. So for me, I talk about self, others, and actions, and that our personal brand is our bridge from self to others. And you can't do no work on your inner self and expect to be able to build an effective personal brand, because it's taking that piece of self and it's being able to communicate it and connect it with others. And then, if you have this misalignment for people of what they're seeing and what they're hearing, it's like if they can sense it, and like that body piece, like you just can't lie in your body. You feel it, you know it. And I think about for myself, particularly when you're talking about, like how you're actually thinking about yourself. And I can just think of all the different little opportunities that you miss because of a moment of insecurity or something. Can you think you hold yourself back from going and speaking to someone instead of going across the room and introducing yourself? And
Yeah.
and it's not to beat yourself up. You're going to have wins and losses in that. Sometimes
Yeah.
you'll hold yourself back, other times you won't. But
Mm,
it's just the reality, though, like how you see yourself and your self concept just has this huge part to play in how you actually put yourself out there, or if you put yourself out there. So
100%.
yeah, being able to take it deeper than the surface level of, oh, what shirt am I wearing today? It's like, if you build that inner confidence, then you can go,
Yeah.
I am going to wear that brighter shirt, or I am going to wear that thing that I feel really confident in, and
Yeah.
things. And the two, and it's not to diminish the outer things, like they are, just as a rich way of communicating who we are as doing that sort of more personal inner work.
So
Yeah.
true. It's so true. I actually have a friend, one of my best friends, who launched a international television series, and it's called Undressed with Catherine Eisenman. And the whole premise of the show is that you can change your life by changing your clothes. And what's really interesting about Kath is she has this uncanny ability. She's a very intuitive individual, and she has this uncanny ability to sit in front of a person and completely read their personality, read, who they are and what they do, simply based on how they dress themselves. And to me, when watching the show and also the many conversations that I've had with her, it is a reminder that how we present ourselves, our clothes, for example, it's a second skin. And you can use that to stand out. You can use that to, I mean, look at politicians. They use that all the time. Nothing's accidental. The colors that they wear, whether something's formal, informal, the structure of the clothing. Why is that? Because they know that everything is symbolic. And I, being a romantic Piscean, I see the world like that. Like, to me, everything's symbolic. Everything you do and don't do says a lot about who you are as a person. And so I think when you approach this topic and this idea of personal branding, and perhaps take the pressure off it being, to create a personal brand means that you somehow want celebrity or fame, but actually do it more from a place of, well, I want to shape my personal brand so people really understand who I am and people really see me for me. Even if when I say people, it's just the people at work, like one person or a really small handful of people. It's just being more playful and open and enjoying the process and taking care and thinking about and being intentional about everything that you do and you don't do. And I think, Alex, that's really at the heart of it. Is the power of personal branding is the fact that you do and you will become more intentional about how you show up and what you say. And no one will ever lose by doing that.
Yeah. I often think about it, like you mentioned, play there and stuff. I often think about that, particularly in work when I'm in more corporate settings. And the thing I always remind people as well is that just because you're crafting a personal brand doesn't mean you don't have different ways of showing up for different contexts. Like, I don't wear my suit when I'm doing my podcast recordings. This is a time where it's like, this is an authentic, relaxed environment where we can sit and have a conversation and things. I often do think about how I love the idea of bringing more like life and colour into what I wear in corporate settings, though I often struggle just to work out how to do that in an authentic way. And it's always laughed at, like some of the environments that I'm in, it's like every guy looks the same, like everyone's in the same blue suit. Not that I do have some nice suit jackets that I like, but even then it's like you don't necessarily want to be the one that looks completely different to the room, but you're wanting to have a bit of life and stuff. So it's always a bit of a juggle at working out how to really engage with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I would say to that, Alex, is engage the professionals. We go to a hairdresser to get our hair cut. We'll go to the doctor to help us with our health. Maybe we'll use a personal trainer when we want to, achieve something from a physical perspective. That's why stylists exist. And I think that there's perhaps this idea or perception that, using a stylist is really reserved for those people that are in the public eye. Well, the truth is we're all in the public eye. And I've had the great privilege through the work that I was doing previously, and especially having represented a supermodel for close to a decade, I've had the privilege of working with amazing stylists. And even in some of the work and projects that I do today, with some of the individuals that I work with, I will engage a stylist to help them craft their visual identity. And I've seen the impact and the difference that can make. And at the end of the day, I had a stylist say to me, which I thought was so on point. She said, if you really think about it, and this is especially typical in Australia, we go to school and most people have a school uniform. We then are thrusted into the world of work with no real direction. Or maybe we go to uni first, and uni, we're probably just guided by what everyone else is wearing.
Yeah, everyone's in their pajamas.
And then, exactly, the Ugg boots. Then we're thrust into the world of work and with no real direction. And of course, we all have our own individual sense of style, but not everyone, myself included, I have to say, is gifted with the ability to just know how to put outfits together and, what is necessarily the right shape or cut or color. Like, not everyone has that natural skill or gift. And I've seen it, like I said, where I remember one lady in particular, and in fact, there's so many men as examples as well. But I just remember this one lady. It was such a dramatic change where she was in her late 50s. The way that she was dressing herself made her look so much older. And she went through the process of working with our stylists. She came out, she looked so young, so modern, so relevant, which is obviously important at that point in your life and career. You know, the idea of staying relevant and, you know, just looking like you're still tapped in, it's really important. So that's just one of many examples I could sit and share where, yes, by just getting a bit of advice and direction from a professional, it can make all the difference. So if you want to consider working with a stylist, Alex, I will definitely introduce you to one of Australia's best stylists
Nice.
for men.
I had
Yeah.
Lisa Stockman on the podcast, who is a stylist in Melbourne. We've had some great chats. So and I think sometimes for me and for others it's the confidence and the courage thing just as much as the ability.
Mm.
Because
Yep.
I told this story with Lisa when she was on. So I was growing up, regional New South Wales. We were living out on a property, and I used to really like fashion and stuff. And so I would, craft my different outfits and things. And I was wearing, my brother and sister were bagging me out, and they're calling me City Boy because I liked doing my hair and wearing, a matching outfit and stuff. And so it's funny. And so you just have these little stigmas that just get planted there. And so it's not that I'm always insecure about it, but it's probably in certain settings you're just sort of trying to work out
Mm.
how to land the right balance of feeling comfortable and confident because you're in something that makes you feel comfortable and confident, but then not
Yeah.
wanting to be feeling uncomfortable because you're standing out and everyone might notice that you're dressed really differently. So it's just about finding that balance and having the actual courage to just feel comfortable in your own skin and what you show
Yeah.
up in and stuff. So
Yeah.
one of the things I wanted to dive in with you was around. So this book sort of goes into some of the concepts of future self psychology. I was really keen if you could sort of expand on that for how we can apply that to our life.
Yeah. And I didn't even know that this area of psychology even existed, future self psychology. And there's a few key pioneers, as far as I understand, in this space. There is Dr. Daniel Gilbert, who actually did an amazing TED talk on the topic, and Dr. Ben Hardy, and also Dr. Hal Hirschfeld. And anyway, so I'm just fascinated by the whole idea. And obviously, when you're talking about personal branding, I always say personal branding is not a short-term activity. It's a long-term mindset. And what I always follow that up with is by saying, you can decide, you wake up one morning and think, you know what, I need to start putting myself out there. I'm going to really think about what I need to do and how I need to do it. And perhaps in a moment of real courage, you start posting on LinkedIn, let's say, and maybe you even create a personal website, and you start doing that for a few months and you're not really getting the response that you want. And then, that's it. It's not it doesn't work like that. Like it's something that you need to be consistent with, and it's something that builds over time, and it's something that grows, and the invisible impact of it perhaps won't really be felt in terms of a return on investment for years. you
Mm.
know One of the things that I often hear when someone reaches out to me is, oh, I've been following you for so long. If we only just specifically talk about showing up on social media, I've been following you for a really long time now. And I think just in that sentiment alone, it just goes to show that it takes time for the impact to really start to be seen. So why do I say all of that? Well, if that's the case, then it's actually really important that you start thinking about your future self and who you want to be in the future, because if you can start to weave that into how you're showing up today, then you'll be in a better position to attract the opportunities that you want in the future. And in terms of some of the really impactful work that I've come across in this space with Dr. Hal Hershfield in particular, if you watch his TED Talk, he actually shares insights into a research study that they did. He's a professor at UCLA. And in this particular research study, they got a whole group of students together, and each of them were given a digital avatar to go into a virtual reality. One half of the students was given a digital avatar that looked like themselves, at that point in time. The other half of the students were given a digital avatar that was digitally enhanced in a way that looked like them in 40 years' time. And so you see them go into this virtual reality, and he actually shows clips of that in the talk. And you see them go into this virtual reality, and you actually see them look in the mirror and see themselves. Anyway, at the end of that journey into the virtual reality, they all had to sit down and answer a series of questions. And in this case, the questions were related to financial decision making. And what they found was that the individuals who went into the virtual reality and saw themselves in 40 years' time, and obviously unconsciously realized that the person they're going to be in the future is a completely different person from who they are today, in the answers that they filled out, they made, I believe it was a 20%, or they committed, to saving 20% more than the students that went in and saw themselves as they were today. And there's so many ways to unpack that, and there's so many ways to really apply that to personal branding. There is the element of, absolutely everything you do today is impacting who you're going to be in the future. And by thinking about it from that perspective, it gives you a whole new mindset. But another thing that I like to bring back to on that point is, I always say to a lot of the audiences that I speak to, imagine if you've just been offered an opportunity to really be visible, to really put yourself out there, but you're absolutely terrified, right? You're absolutely terrified. You don't know if you can do it. You don't have the experience. And in that moment, you just sit down and you close your eyes and you think, okay, what would my future self say to me right now? And inevitably, Alex, I've asked that question to one person in lots of different audiences. All the time, their future self says, just do it. Go ahead. What have you got to lose? And so for me, we're talking these days about AI being our coach. Actually, we've got this amazing coach internally, and that's our future self. And when you really tune into that, it can be a really powerful asset.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it helps me ground myself at times if I'm sort of just, particularly when you get bogged down in the busyness of life and, maybe you're feeling a bit rushed and that can cause you to feel a bit flustered. And I actually think about the Arnold Schwarzenegger doco. And he talked a lot about visualization, and even like back when he's like, in a poor family in Austria, and he visualized himself becoming a movie star. He very much and I don't quite do it to the obsessive level that he did, but he was visualizing himself in movie roles and things like this, and obsessively, and just and then that sort of started feeding into his bodybuilding, that he ultimately became his pathway towards that and stuff. But I'll sometimes use that just in the sense of really just trying to sort of sit and visualize, what do I see my life like in the place that I'm trying to get to, and not just the role, but the lifestyle in terms of, I'm in a good routine. I'm going to the gym, and I'm going from the gym to the office, and this visualizing myself in a state of, I'm really, I'm feeling really intentional about the things that I'm doing because it's an intentional aspect that's important to my life, and things. And this podcast, like I see this podcast for me as a long play in terms of I'm really passionate about career development and supporting people in their careers, and I've
Mm,
done that in numerous sort of spaces and segments, particularly youth and disengaged and people transitioning their careers, and I really like being in that space. And I have often wondered, do I see myself moving into more senior leadership or CEO type roles in organizations in that space.
mm,
And whilst obviously my philosophy is kind of planned, I might I hold all my goals and ideas in an open hand, because who knows where I'll actually ultimately want to get to, because all the
mm.
different things will come and go as I navigate that journey. But it was part of it for me was going like, well, this is a way that I can really be establishing myself in that ecosystem, and
Mm,
building networks, and building that brand of people understand my perspectives on things and can easily find out if they want to. They can know me and understand me, and see where I fit in this space. But
absolutely.
it's
And
not
yeah,
something
get
that
to
I
know
think
you.
I'm not disappointed if I don't get offered a CEO job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
Yeah,
enjoy the process.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as much as I
Yeah.
can when I'm editing at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, not so much then.
I do. I do better in my job when I've been able to get up early and work on my podcast, because I know I've done my personal passion projects. Or often I'll record in the morning and I'll have a great chat with someone, in the morning before I then go to work, and I then actually go to work really energized. So that it does actually feed into things really well at times. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
lots of
it's a
different
win-win.
layers to having a personal brand that it can be a benefit. One,
100%.
it can give you a sense of autonomy in your career. Like you can't control everything in your career. There are very few things we can control. But when we're actually at least taking ownership of our personal brand and how we're putting ourselves out in the world, at least we can rest on that of knowing the way I've put myself out there into the world is aligned with my values, and you can really sit easy with that, and it can help you when maybe the work you're doing, you're maybe being asked to do things that you're not comfortable with, or tasks that don't align with your passions and stuff. But yeah, it can really help this
100%.
keep you grounded.
Yeah, 100%. And you're building an asset that you can take with you wherever you go. And I think especially now with the amount of uncertainty that exists in the marketplace and the amount of change and the rate of change that everyone is experiencing, that's the one thing, like you said, that you really can control. And you can rest easy knowing that that's something that you've got within your own power, and you can use that in any which way. And a big part of what I do today is, of course, speaking with executives who work with and for and within very big, well established, iconic brands that it's quite easy to lose yourself in because it's such a big brand. And I always make a point of saying, if you can approach the dynamic by thinking about the fact that you're in a brand partnership right now. So you're where you are with the brand that you're working in, you're in a brand partnership. The fact that you work with the brand that you work with says a lot about who you are, your level of credibility, what you're capable of. So use that to your advantage so that you can leverage off that brand power to build your own brand power that you then can take with you wherever you go. And I'm certainly not getting engaged to, by these companies to inspire all of their staff to leave and go and build their own businesses. And quite frankly, I don't think everyone's made to be in their own business. And not everyone, I'm sure, wants to be in their own business. But it's just such an important thing to be thinking about and to be doing all the time. And yeah, I'm really, really passionate about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so often you hear people say like, I never thought about personal branding until I went to do my own business. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh crap, no one knows me and I need them to know me.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, trying to disconnect that idea that personal brand is just for someone that's building their own thing versus you're in a job, it's a salary job. It's not necessarily going to make an immediate impact or even a requirement of you to do it, but it's a way that you can actually shape the opportunities that you get within that organization. One, because you become to know what you want and you might be actually willing to ask for it
Yep.
versus just, taking what you get and being really grumpy about it. Or maybe it's so that you can leverage to get into an organization or a role where you are a better fit and they can see that you're the right fit. There's so many benefits for it. For me, even in my job, one of the ways I started doing that was just by always making sure that I had a question to ask at the end of a meeting where someone's presenting
Mm,
and you're in a big group of people and they finish this talk, they've probably put heaps of time into preparing it, and then it's just crickets at the end of a meeting and no one ever wants
mm,
to speak up and say anything. Everyone probably walks off with a whole bunch of questions that they actually did want to ask, but not in size. It's like once you're in a meeting over like 8 people, no one ever likes to say anything.
yeah,
So
it's
I
true.
said to myself, I was like, I'm always going to ask a question. It's just opened up so many opportunities where then other people have reached out to me and it's sparked different conversations and we've been able to start working on things and stuff.
I love that example. I really, really love that example, Alex. And it just goes to show like that example is the perfect example of we're not necessarily saying that, and I'm certainly not necessarily saying that tomorrow you have to become the next big LinkedIn influencer or you have to launch a podcast or you have to take these big steps, go on the speaking circuit. That's not necessarily the next step for everyone. The next step might be just asking a question
Mm,
in those meetings and
yeah.
becoming known as the person who's willing to ask a question and start conversations. And that could be the thing, the lever that completely changes your network, your career opportunities. And but it was an intentional decision that you made. And that, I think people get lost or caught up in, oh, but I'm just not that type of person, or I'm it's so self-indulgent, like everything we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation. But really what we're talking about is, what do you want? Who do you want to be? And what are some of the things that you can do to make that happen? And maybe it is just that perfect example of asking
Mm.
questions.
Yeah. It's like the micro habits of how you
Mm,
show up every day are actually more powerful than the big picture things. Like, it
yes.
doesn't matter if you wear a power suit every day, if the way you show up in the little aspects of your character or your personality or the way you talk to people. Like if you just, like if you walk into an office and you're putting people down behind their back, like no one's impressed by the suit,
Yeah.
like, so, the little micro habits, like, the types of conversations you have in the kitchenette when you go in there. It's like, do you always go in there and complain about the latest decision the leaders have made? Even though it's like, a really one of those little things where it's like, well, not everyone's going to be happy here. So like,
Yeah.
let's not get too obsessed on those things or, all these little things, like they're just so powerful.
They all make a difference. And on that point, the the thing that's ironic is, whilst that person may enter that interaction thinking it's harmless gossip, or perhaps it's a way of trying to build rapport and to feel more connected to one another, what the research shows is that when you talk badly about somebody else, there's a thing called spontaneous trait transference. When you speak badly about someone else, those people that you're speaking to are going to then apply the way they look at you. They're going to be thinking that those things that you've said about the other person, those negative traits that you've talked about, will actually they'll look at you thinking that you have those negative traits.
Yeah, wow.
So you're doing yourself a disservice by being the complainer, by being the office gossip. You're not building a positive reputation, whereas the opposite is true. So if you're the person who always speaks nicely about people, is always spreading positive gossip, trying to uplift others, then all of those positive traits that you point out and showcase, or not showcase, excuse me, spotlight in other people, then those people are going to look at you as though you've got those positive traits as well.
Yeah.
So it really is a win-win to just speak well about other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think about it like with me in any role I'm in, I always try and be the person to my boss that I would just really want someone to be if I was in their position. And so, like, always looking to lead up, like, I'll always look to challenge in a positive sense, not in a personal way, but this sort of like trying to lead up of saying, hey, these are the directions I think we should be going, and getting those conversations, because often a boss wants the people under them to like be pushing up, saying, this is where I think we can go with this, bringing those ideas and bringing those thoughts and those challenging ideas and opening up that conversation of things that this isn't going to be easy, but we know this is the way we need to go. And when it's coming from the ground up, then that releases them to go, oh, now it's better than them feeling like they have to try and drag everyone in a direction they don't want to go because it's going to be hard. So yeah, the more you can position yourself and like have those little mindsets of how's this actually thinking about the other person can then really influence how they think about you. And they've just been, I've got some bosses that are just amazing champions of me and find opportunities to elevate me and my ideas and thoughts where they can. And that this fuels me to try and, come through for them. And when you get in those environments where you can sort of feel one another, it's amazing how much career progression and opportunities can come through the environment you get into. It makes me think then it's like, it's hard to envision yourself moving then, because you're like, could I move this dynamic with me? You never know what the dynamic's going to be. And the dynamic that you're in is such a big influence in your career.
It's so true. And for me, and coming from PR, so public relations, which is all about relationship building and creating connections, there are two golden rules to building rapport and really creating a great connection. Make that person feel good, make that person look good. That's it. It's like so simple. There's no complex methodologies. If you want to create a good working relationship that then turns into that really positive ecosystem of people then championing you and helping you get to where you want to go, make them look good, make them feel good, and you'll have them on your side. And it's the catch here is that you can't fake that. So when you're making them look good and making them feel good, it can't be surface level, I'm doing this actually for my own purpose, or I'm doing this because I want to get something out of you, because people are so much more intelligent than they give themselves credit for. It has to come from a place of genuinely wanting to make that person look good and feel good, and they'll feel it. So I'm sure that the leaders that you've worked for, they know that you're doing it from a place that's very real and very genuine. And it's not, I'm doing this because I want to get ahead myself. You're doing it because it actually makes you feel good to do that. And it's a beautiful energy that you then create with the people that you're working with. And they feel like they trust you. They obviously like you. And that's the magic ingredients to creating a powerful network.
Absolutely. Carlii, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing. How can people find you? How can people get hold of the book? Who do you see being the people that are really going to benefit from this book?
How can you find me would be on my website. So that's carlielyon.com or .com.au, or LinkedIn or Instagram, in fact. I like to play in all of those areas. Where is the book available? Wherever you purchase books, so online or in bookstores. And who do I think this is going to have the most impact with and for? My go-to is to say, especially women, but actually, I don't even think I'm going to buy into that myself. I think this is for anyone who feels like they know they're holding themselves back and they know that they have a fear factor around putting themselves out there and allowing themselves to be more visible. This book will help them.
Wonderful. Well, I'm looking forward to getting my hands on it, and so grateful that you could be on today and have this great chat.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex.
Thanks for tuning in to Kinda Planned. Subscribe and send this episode to a friend that you think needs to hear it. Or head to my website, www.kindaplan.com.au for free resources, or follow me on LinkedIn and socials so that we can keep the conversation going. Now go unlock your next opportunity.